You are now listening to the Lasting Legacy Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. We have another episode of the Lasting Legacy Podcast. If you are watching this on YouTube, be sure to like it before you watch the video, because that's the only way you're allowed to watch the rest of the video. So today we have a very special guest. We have Tyler Mcleod. He's an insurance agent with American National, and he's done a ton of different things in his career. So we're just going to kind of touch on a little bit of everything and hopefully give you guys the information you need.
Heck yeah. I'm David. I own David Took It, photography, videography, and usually I ask the questions. So welcome, Ty. Welcome.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me. Been watching the podcast, enjoying it. So
Heck yeah.
hopefully we can make it a good one.
Glad to have you on. You definitely have an interesting background, so we're going to hopefully dive into that a little bit more. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so currently, like Brad said, insurance agent with American National. Born and raised from Pueblo, so, native here. I've done
Common occurrence.
any kind of job under the sun, it kind of seems like. So I've got a lot to pick from. Started work basically when I was like 12 years old, and have been at it nonstop. So.
Yeah, you've pretty much done, I don't know, like three different things for sure since I've known you.
Yep.
Three prominent things. So you want to start, I guess we can kind of talk about like you started in banking, right?
Yeah,
or
so
somewhat.
I came into banking after high school. So throughout high school, I had pretty typical jobs. I was working in some fast food jobs. I worked at the paintball field in the summer here, so that was kind of a fun deal. Did that from like 14 to 16. When I became of working age, went and got me, an actual W-2 job. Worked at some fast food for a couple years through high school. All my friends were doing sports and everything like that, and I wanted cars and money and sound systems in my cars. So
And basketball in high school doesn't pay for that.
It does not pay for that. So my mom said, if you want it, you better go pay for it. And so I did. So I went and, continued working and got myself some jobs. And everyone says, fast food sucks, but it teaches you a lot. It's a good foundation and everything. But graduated high school and then moved into banking. I started jobs just as a simple teller when I was in college. So part-time. It's kind of a real good part-time job when you're working and everything with college. It's banker's hours. Weekends, you're off pretty early, like 4 o'clock, stuff like that. And at the time, I thought it was a great opportunity. You're like, oh, yeah, I'm working in a bank. I'm working for Wells Fargo. You know what I mean?
You meet people. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You see a lot of people from all walks of life, young and old, because everybody's banking at some point, right? And so did the banking industry for about 5 years. I was with Wells Fargo for a couple. Then I moved to a credit union, which I loved. Had a lot of growth and everything there, and progressed and moved up all the way to doing lending, mortgages, applications, closings, everything like that. So taught me a lot about finance in general. Had a pretty good interest in finance myself, and then that just kind of expanded upon it. Blessed to learn about credit and everything from a young age. And so, yeah, and then kind of leading into that.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, as an accounting major, I always thought like being a bank teller would be a good job. I never got one, but I remember thinking, I don't know why, I was too busy at Walmart. Yeah. But I remember thinking, I was like, that's a pretty good job, because I remember they were paying higher too than like minimum wage, at least when I was looking at it. So I was like, oh, $15 an hour. Oh, right, hell yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't that much when I started, but it's a cool job, man. It's not hard work.
It's not fast food.
It's not fast food.
You get to dress up, all that good stuff.
That was cool. Was buying button-up shirts.
Yeah.
I mean, I was young. I was wearing like purple and blue and the most random shirts, and I went back and donated them all. I'm like, what was I thinking?
All the old ladies
Nobody
I love your shirt.
Everyone's like, oh, how old are you? Can you even work here? And everything. And I'm like, yes, I can.
So what does that transition from finance to e-commerce look like?
Yeah, so I was presented with that. I was in banking, had applied for some promotions and everything like that. Fortunately, didn't get them. I was just, kind of underqualified, still shooting for the stars. But in my position, I was kind of capped with what I was doing, and I was getting restless. I kind of get restless. I kind of get antsy, just staying doing the same thing over and over and not seeing that immediate progression or that next step. And so I stepped off, needed something different. Did car sales for a while. I'd done some other sales jobs throughout the years. Sold cars here, which I like doing. hated the hours and everything, working Saturdays all day, going from getting Martin Luther King Day off to you're working open to close is a big change. Yeah. And then I was working with a buddy of mine, he was doing YouTube and just car stuff in general, and his channel and everything was taking off, and we kind of came together, and he needed some help as well, and he presented me an opportunity to actually start working with him, getting paid. And so we started building a business out of doing YouTube and working on cars and stuff. He had already done, a good foundation building and everything of that already, so that helped, but quite different. So we had this idea that we were going to create a brand and sell t-shirts and apparel and trinkets and little stuff like that alongside just making content. Car videos. Content and videos about cars. And we had no idea what we were kind of doing. We had an idea. We had some friends that were kind of doing it that helped us out with some of the basics, like what size poly mailer to use and stuff like that. But as ourselves, the only experience I had ever had is my brother worked for a uniform and embroidery shop for years. So I tapped into him a lot about what to do or how to do it, what shirts to get, what blanks, everything like that. And you think about it and you're like, oh, I'm just going to sell t-shirts. And there's so much more to it than just that. Yeah. So to us, making YouTube videos is easy because that's what we'd been doing. It was fun, right? Yeah. We were already doing that. But when you're creating a business and trying to sell shirts all the way from, finding margins and sourcing and dealing with local vendors, and then you deal with one and they don't meet deadlines, and you're dealing with another one and they don't meet deadlines, and stuff's messed up. And it was quite a bit of change, and probably the biggest transition I had from working outside of a corporate setting to just going to work. You got a schedule, you get your benefits, you clock out, everything like that, to actually diving into like a full-on kind of entrepreneurial role,
like a startup.
Yeah, exactly. There's no rules, right? And so everything is fresh and everything's unknown. Everything's a reaction to what you're putting into it, and doing that. So it was a the unknown for us, but
it's like night and day difference, really.
It really is. And I mean, you come in, I think every new startup, every new entrepreneur kind of has that fire, right? You're super excited. Like, that's kind of the American dream, right? You want to work for yourself. You want to make your own hours. You want to own your own business, right? But the fire kind of starts to fade when you realize all the details that go into it. And it's not that the fire fades, but it's just, you're like, oh, this is real. And you start realizing what it actually takes. And we just learned it kind of as we went. Like I said, we utilized a lot of the resources we had around us for people that were already doing it. And above that, we just honestly invested in ourselves and just learning from those that were like really doing it. So.
Yeah, like the fire fading, like you were talking about. Like, I mean, I felt like that. I don't know that the fire's fading in that sense. It's just like it becomes very overwhelming. There's a certain point, and for me, I would say maybe it's like around year 3 or 4 or something like that, around there, where I was like, it was getting like, we were growing so quick, it was just getting overwhelming when you have like all these little random things you don't have to worry about start coming stuff, up, and you're like, oh, and then at the end of the day, it's like, well, okay, like now I'm like stressed out of my mind, but also like if I'm not gonna work, I'm not gonna pay the bills. That's, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so it's you hit those struggles in something like that.
Well, I think that's one thing, like you said, you don't realize is all the tedious stuff. Like no one wants to come in on Monday morning to 100 emails, whether it be from people with inquiries or pissed off customers or something like that, and you're like, oh, this is how we're starting our day today. And it just sets
you almost have
the
to
tone.
dedicate time to that specifically. Yeah.
And that's one thing myself, like I struggle with a lot, is like time blocking and stuff. I mean, I'll personally admit, like my structure and organization isn't always the best. I've always done well ever since college, like my procrastination of it always gets done and I get through. But when you're in these like leadership roles, like you said, or you're running the show, it really weighs on you then of what that can actually do to your business model. Like you said, like if that one paper doesn't get filed, or that one person doesn't get answered, or that one thing doesn't get ordered because you're so overwhelmed with all this stuff, it really can really affect the whole picture. So,
absolutely. Did you have any hand in designing those t-shirts, or?
Yeah, so it was a collaborative effort. We did some in hand. We always reached out to like graphic designers and stuff. I personally am not good with like Photoshop or anything like that. I tried learning a little bit, and it just not my forte.
There's a setting for a setting in Photoshop. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
and then you're getting in way more when you're starting to do vector work, when you're doing artwork. And so for us, it was really realizing what is worth outsourcing, right? What is worth our time? It's like, is it worth me spending 20 hours a week to try to learn this trait or growing the business?
Yeah.
And so that was kind of my passion and my focus, was the advertising and the growth side and stuff like that.
Nice.
Coming from the corporate world, I always took pride in like the customer service and kind of the delivery aspect and kind of the customer experience in that side.
Yeah.
So when you're trying to deal with everything, or you're both doing the same thing and you're kind of stepping on each other's toes back and forth, not having that clarity, it can get real difficult. So we outsourced it. We had some good designers that we worked with. I still to this day continue to work with them on some different projects, and it just makes sense at that point it's worth the money. Like you realize that at times, like, what is worth your money when you're in the business.
It's done. It's done right. Correct file types. You can just send it to the print shop and it's good. Versus when you do it yourself, you're like, oh, I need this file type, and you're like, well, I didn't save it as that.
Yeah, or I didn't go, and now I designed it all in one layer, and I don't have to do tracing and everything. Now you got to redesign it, and it honestly, it benefits in the end. Like we worked with numerous print shops, and in the end, we'd kind of gotten it down because we've been doing it for 3-4 years. Where I'd send artwork out to print shops and had it all, color tones, Pantones, layers, everything figured out. And they were like, nobody does this.
Yeah. It's a well-oiled machine.
And then they almost reward you, and you can kind of leverage that, building that relationship to kind of like, hey, I know this is last minute, but can you sneak us in and get this done? They're like, oh yeah, your stuff's easy. We'll just crank it out. So.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. That definitely sounds like one way you help build the brand, but in what other ways did you help build this brand to 7 figures?
Yeah, so we just it was support. So there's a lot of people that were involved too. It was both of us doing basically 2 halves of a whole operation, and so. It had its ups and downs in its sense. I'm sure everything does. But so I mostly did, I guess, my contribution was most of the like social media advertising and everything. So I ran majority of our like Facebook ads and Instagram ads, Snapchat ads, and I'd never done any of that before. And so that was all new learning. We went to some seminars, like I said, invested the money, spent the money, traveled out of town, and literally learned from guys that were doing multi-million dollars in advertising and stuff, and just listening what they said verbatim and like copy and paste and just adapting to our model, and literally not reinventing the wheel because
it's already been there.
They're doing it. I saw the figures, you saw the numbers, everybody knows their names and their brands, so it's working. And so I think that was our biggest takeaway, is literally just investing into the people who know, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like sometimes it seems really expensive, like that, $2,000 weekend or seminar or ticket to an event or something. You're like, man, I can't afford that. But you'll hear often it's like, well, can you afford not to and stuff? So
that's true.
And that's a hard battle. Like we went back and forth because starting out and everything, it does seem like a lot of money. And so we were like, should we not? But I think it definitely always paid off for us in the investment aspect of that.
That's huge. Education is priceless, truly. Like
right.
Seminars that I've went to has just, pushed me forward so much further than what I would have done with YouTube, which was up until that point YouTube University for anything.
Right.
If you wanted to learn how to make Snapchat ads, you would just go on YouTube, but you can go straight to the person who did the research, who probably made the YouTube video that the other guy watched, and
right.
truly know what goes into it. That's
Someone
that's
who's
absolutely
like,
huge.
Yeah, someone who's doing it and not just talking about doing it. Like,
right.
You for sure know. On YouTube, it's hard to tell, like,
who's really
doing
there's so
it,
much out there.
or are they just saying they're doing it? Yeah, like you said, they might have watched the YouTube video themselves.
Well, YouTube is priceless. Like you can literally learn anything on YouTube if you're dedicated to it. Like you can literally learn anything. Like if you want to learn biophysics or something or anything, it's on there. I'm sure out there. You just got to go find it. And that's the great thing, the times we live in right now, is the information is out there.
It's everywhere.
So I think we're blessed in that aspect. But like you said, learning from people who have already done it will cut your learning curve in half every single time.
Yeah.
Every single time.
So did you see a pretty big, a significant change from running these ads before and after you got that kind of education?
Definitely. Yeah. we didn't really know what we had, right? We were working with, and we'd run some ads. We're like, oh, this is great. And then you get someone else in, and they're like, yeah, that's good. Or like or even the opposite. We had times where people were saying, we're like, we're not getting these returns that we thought we'd get. And then we'd show it to someone that's doing, millions a month in YouTube and Facebook spending. And they'd be like, dude, you guys are crushing it. Like, why are you holding back? And we had no idea. And so finding just the voices of influence that can truly help you, of the experts, like I said, it definitely impacted what we were doing and how we were doing things significantly. There's definitely a mind shifts change in there. It's sometimes literally the spend money to make money aspect comes in, and I'm sure it's not applicable in every business, but for us, it kind of came down to that point. Like I said, spending the money on the education, spending the money on just the advertising, getting it out there and stuff.
So in the beginning, were you guys being, I'm assuming more conservative, like you push an ad, kind of sit back, maybe don't put that much, money behind it, see where it goes, and then wait for like the return on it. And the other guys were saying, be more aggressive money-wise on the back end. Yeah,
so we are even just doing one. Like we just do a ad. Like, let's just do one. Because we didn't know. We just running one ad, one creative, one style. And they're like, no, dude, you need to be like running like 10. You need to be testing the waters with everything.
That's
because
insane.
And now it's even gotten even harder in like the social media advertising game. I mean, Apple came out and just killed everyone with iOS 14 with the new privacy laws and like anti-tracking and stuff like that. And everyone's like, oh, yay. Like, we're like all for privacy and everything. But I don't know about everyone else, but I don't want to scroll my Facebook feed and me as a single, male getting advertisements for diapers and stuff.
True,
right?
yeah.
But when there's no tracking per se, that's what happens in that sense. And so it's still going on. I think it's getting better. Like I said, I've been out the game for a little bit now, but it caused a big disruption in the social media marketing game for sure when that came in.
I always think that, like, as a business person, and I see an ad and I'm like, I am not your target audience. You just wasted so much money on this ad. I think that so often.
And it happens. Funny. I mean, it's testing. Like, you're going to spend money, but as long as you can justify the spend, I mean, even from a business aspect, you might not see the direct sale like you do with like an e-commerce, a direct product sale off that ad, but maybe as like a brick and mortar now, because I've done a little bit for like my brother's business here in town with his Facebook. So it's a lot harder for like a brick and mortar advertising versus like e-com. That's even a whole nother world in that sense. And so it's really, I mean, it's just test. It's a lot of testing, of what works.
It's so much. It's crazy. Yeah. Like in my industry, what I've noticed is like, I get a lot of advertisements on my Instagram for other tax firms. And in my head, I'm like, you guys, like, I already know, like, they're targeting it, right? Yeah. Like, and in their target, they're putting like accounting and stuff. They're putting what they're doing, but then it's coming to people like me who are talking about it, I think.
Almost missing the target.
It's missing it totally. Yeah. Like, why would they want to spend money advertising to me about doing my taxes?
See, I love when similar industries would advertise to me because I will go out of my way to engage with my competitors or people in the same industry. So I will continue to get their ads so I can continue to see what's going on in the space.
That's smart.
Right?
Yeah.
And so
see how it's evolving.
You just see what's evolving. Are they doing something different? Are they presenting it different? Because you just want to know what it's like. So if I can let Facebook give it to me every day without having to go search it, I mean, it is going to cost them a little bit of ad spend, but
that's smart, actually.
It's just how it works. I mean, that's something, again, that's a tip that another guy that's was way ahead of me. It's like engage with everybody that's in your space. If you see an ad that you like or a company, even if you don't buy their products or whatever, but you really, as an advertiser, like their marketing strategy, engage with it as much as you can, because the algorithm will feed it to you and just give you all the info.
That's super smart.
Yeah,
I never would have thought of that.
Yeah, no, that's super genius. Now, how did you, I mean, we all hear about Instagram, Facebook, Google SEO. The one that really like blows my mind is the Snapchat ads. So can you elaborate kind of how that works? And
Snapchat came out and it was a gold mine. So early in the beginnings, Facebook was dirt cheap, right? It was so cheap. And then it got really expensive because a lot of big names were getting into Facebook advertising. I mean, you start getting Coca-Cola, Ford, GM, all these big money advertisers spending money now on Facebook. Apple, that's going to spend millions, 10 million a month on advertising on Facebook and stuff. It's like, how do you compete with that?
You're
right?
not going to get the same that you did your $50 or whatever.
And all it does is just drive up it's called the auction. Like all it does is drive up the auction costs. So it's like, yeah, Apple's willing to pay. So if you want to pay, like you got to pay up too. And so Snapchat came in and it was dirt cheap and you could get it in front of tons of people for no money. Now the engagements weren't as great, but you could just get that brand recognition and visibility in front of so many people. And even with like the swipe feature that they had, I mean, Instagram's already doing it and stuff. I think Instagram came later after Snapchat, so it was already doing it, and you could get great conversions and stuff on Snapchat. And honestly, Snapchat came out and the targeting was insane. Like if you got on there and you knew what they could target, you might be pretty upset.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So
they could get down to the finite one person if they wanted to.
That's super interesting because what do they have to base it off of? Snapchat in my head is, peer-to-peer, messaging. You're not really, I don't personally interact with any of the like Explorer stuff in there. I just don't know how it targets, like how would it know based off my usage of the app that I'm into photography? You know what I mean? Like,
well, I think it's
unless it knows I'm taking pictures of cameras and like of my screen in Lightroom. Yeah,
it might,
which is pretty scary.
It might. I don't know how Snapchat like usage of camera usage and message, but there's like bureaus, like they already have access to like Visa and everything, so they can go off like your Visa bureau of what your actual Visa purchase history looks like.
That's wild.
They can go off like household census bureau, median household income. You can go like 4-family households, 6-family households, 150,000 plus, 30,000 or less households. You can do credit targeting and stuff. It's insane.
And Snapchat's like super location based too. So I can imagine that would help somehow.
I'm sure Snapchat definitely tracks the location.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of like the feature. You go in and you can see like exactly where your friends are around the whole world.
Yeah, but not like I don't want to say to like scare people. They're like, oh my god, they're tracking everything. Like,
but they are.
They are.
The FBI is watching. Guys, turn off your Alexas. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
It's used in the sense to benefit. Like there are strict laws around all of this and like usage and everything, but it allows you a better user experience. I mean, literally, like I love when I get a product that I want, but I don't really want to go look for, and it just gives it to me.
Or I didn't know it existed.
Or didn't know it existed. Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
It works and it changes. Like every single person I'm sure watching this has bought something that they saw one time or saw 2 times on an ad or something, and they loved it. Like,
Impulse
let's be real.
buy. Yeah, absolutely.
When I'm scrolling Instagram and that Amazon ad pops up and it's like 7 cool things, I go every single time when my Amazon ad
hit that
pops up.
carousel.
Yeah,
every time
to see what cool things there are. I'll go and put it in my cart and save it for later and stuff. It's crazy how well it works, actually.
That's insane.
Yeah, the amount of data they're collecting is to make it a better user experience is insane. Yeah.
That is absolutely crazy. I mean, it's scary, but I can see the benefits to it for people who need to track that information.
That makes me want to make a Snapchat ad.
Just to see
kind of where it goes. I'm curious.
And I mean, I don't want to stay on the ad topic too long, but like I know I did photos for this company, and then they pushed those photos on ads, right?
Yep.
Okay. Do you see conversions based off photo ads or like worded ads? Or because I mean you guys were doing giveaways for cars, so obviously that's going to generate like, oh man, that's a sweet car, let me click the link, versus somebody wearing a t-shirt.
Yeah, it all just depends, honestly, and I think there's a balance of needing both. Right, you're going to see someone that you need to give them the hook of whatever your offer is, and then you also need to hit them with something that they can relate to as well. So we started doing that because we're just doing like mock-ups, like digital mock-ups, and we learned from another company that's huge in the apparel industry in the last 3 years. I mean, they're a big name. Maybe you guys have seen some of their stuff, but they just told us like everything needs to be like on models, right? And because someone wants to relate, they want to see what it looks like. They want to know what that product is going to use in their kitchen, in their household, what's going to look like on their body.
Not just the plain white,
not just like a boom. Yeah, that's what a t-shirt. It's like, well, what does a t-shirt really look like?
Exactly.
And it provides like social proof too. So it gives a little bit more trust in the brand or the product or whatever it is, that this isn't just something that we Google image you pulled off and it's a China product or whatever that you have no idea about. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've all bought that Gildan t-shirt and you were like, damn, this thing fits like a box.
Like, I got.
It's terrible. The sleeves really aren't fitted right. Like I can't stand it when I buy a shirt like that.
Right.
Most of the time
it's
they
the
didn't
worst.
have it on a model, for that.
Me being in the apparel industry, I hate buying clothes online.
Yeah.
I don't buy anything online because I'm so picky. I've gone through so many blanks, so many printing strategies and techniques and everything. I literally go to like Dick's and pick up Nike hoodies and sweatshirts, and I film and I look at it, I'm like, this is trash.
Yeah,
but it's like,
exactly.
this is a multi-billion-dollar company, and I'm just like, how do they get away with it?
You're like, no, I'm not impressed.
It's like I am tainted.
So that seems like it was a pretty big part of your life, and it's something you enjoyed actually doing. What made you decide to leave that and pursue your new brand and new career?
Yeah, so it was actually a real difficult decision for me personally. I loved what we were doing. It was, like I said, I loved it. We built something from, just like a entertainment content brand into a full-blown brand of selling physical products and, tons of T-shirts and hats and everything. And that was kind of like our name on it in a sense. Like I said, my pride of every shirt that went out, I had probably touched at one point. And so that was really hard for me. It got to a point where we just weren't really in complete agreement with the future of the brand and everything. And I was searching for myself for additional growth, kind of the same thing going back to like my banking. I just felt kind of that stagnancy, right? And I had some control of that I'd control that as well in some of it, but didn't have all like enough control of that. And so I really decided, I'm getting older, what do I want? What am I doing? And so it was a lot of personal decision for me. And then the financial, planning and insurance industry kind of came up just out of a conversation with some friends of mine who are also mentors and stuff. And they're like, hey, have you ever thought about this? I was like, well, I know about insurance. Like, I've been around insurance. I actually studied for my license even before I did e-commerce. I just never did anything with it. Never took the test, never got my license. I just fell through. I was like, it just sounds boring
compared to what you were presented with the startup,
we were traveling, we were going to the cool events, meeting cool
cars,
people,
everything,
cool cars. It was
Bad
the
bitches.
dream.
No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, no, you travel around and you kind of had this slight glimpse into like this celebrity-esque lifestyle. Not us so much, but some of the bigger characters, feels we around.
That whole thing that you guys were building, they are up there with the top 1% of YouTube.
Yeah, definitely. And it's weird. It's definitely weird when you're going somewhere and someone's like, hey, you're so-and-so. And you're like, I don't know you. That takes some getting used to. We fortunately didn't have that as much, but seeing some of like the other people we were working with. Oh, yeah. Getting stopped everywhere you go.
Yeah, you can't just go to AutoZone, I'm sure.
Right. So when you compare that to working a desk job doing insurance, you're like, why would you do that? And for me, it strictly came down to personal goals and like career, like future
longevity.
Longevity. That's a good
absolutely.
idea. Of what I wanted for my personal growth and longevity and financial goals and everything else along that. And for me, the insurance came along. I'd always been interested, like I said, in finance and all that. I love money and trying to figure it out. I love, trying to not pay the tax man as much as possible. That's why I got Brad here,
Absolutely.
But
I love money and not paying taxes.
Yeah, anyway, can, find out how the 1% operate to help myself. And honestly, that came along was insurance. And it's a huge industry that, everybody at this table has some form of insurance, right? And I'm sure everybody watching.
Unfortunately.
I would hope so, right? And we'll get into that too. It's a great business to be in, and
everybody needs it.
And we were talking about it, and it provides a great career opportunity. And my mentor really told me, he said, well, why don't you just do this so you can build a foundation and then build your other wants on top of it, right? The other things that maybe like are light your fire, so if you wanted to continue to do car stuff or whatever it is,
e-commerce on the side,
whatever it is, he's like, use this to build your foundation of your life and then build from there.
Get some stability in place,
right?
And then you can start branching off, kind of.
Exactly. So and that kind of intrigued me, and I said, started seeing some of the figures, some of the money, and I was like, there's some good opportunity here. And it's super hard. Definitely an industry I think people think is a lot easier than it is. I'm sure it's similar to like real estate and things of that nature. you see the big commission checks or you see the whatever it is, and
the cool cars.
you're right.
Again,
you see
we keep coming back to the cool cars.
The
right?
bad bitches again.
Yeah,
No, I don't know if I can say that. I don't know.
Disclaimer. No. But yeah, you're like, oh man, insurance agents, they're always on the golf course. They're always on vacation.
Lunch meetings constantly.
Yeah, they're at lunch meetings all the time. And I'm sure there's some truth to that. Guys have put their time in and built their businesses. But it's tough and it's a grind at first. But, like they say, nothing good comes easy. So
absolutely. I see, all the time we're in the same Facebook groups, and you can tell which industries are like saturated, kind of like the real estate. Look at anything, somebody trying to sell a house. How many comments are on that one post? It's just absolutely nuts. Insurance is another one. Photography obviously is another one. Right. Brad just owns the accounting and tax guy one because he's the only name that's ever in there.
Yeah,
but
there's like 3 others.
Yeah, there's 3. I don't know who they are. They're not. They didn't hire me to shoot their social media, so they're nobody to me. But
right.
But yeah, it's definitely, I would say, starting off. It's probably kind of like starting off in second gear. It's going to be a little jumpy at first, but once those wheels are turning, you're right into third gear.
Yeah, and it's not glamorous by any means. I mean, running quotes and insurance for autos and stuff it's not glamorous, but there's a whole other side of it that I've learned and grown to, and that excites me and everything. Is really like the opportunity that you can leverage and utilize insurance. I guess most people don't even know about,
such as life insurance type stuff.
Yeah, some life insurance, tax strategies and stuff.
What I really
Brad and I talked about and stuff. So
yeah, what I really like insurance for me, I always just thought of like get the cheapest one. Mm-hmm. But yeah, when you I imagine that's how most people feel. So for you, I feel like your first hurdle is like trying to explain to people like this insurance is more than what you have, but here's why. Yep, or something like that, because
adding value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it is hard when we're in a society when it's just like all the advertising you get is cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Lower your insurance. All the TikTok ads are lower your insurance, your car insurance, $30 a month. And you're like,
you get on YouTube and you'll get some company you've never heard of that's like, my insurance went from $120 to $40 a month, and you're like, okay, guys, let's get real here.
Like, I hope you don't hit anything.
Yeah, and it comes down to, I mean, like, let's flip it on the other end of that. Like, how you guys have watched daytime cable at some point in your life, right? Mm-hmm. How many injury attorney commercials do you see, right?
At least 4 big heavy hitters.
At least 4 big heavy hitters, and I'm sure everybody knows the name of at least one of them, right?
You can't drive down the street without seeing his face on a billboard.
Exactly. And
both 2 of those people you're talking about are literally 3 blocks from this office.
Yes,
right.
We could probably throw a rock and hit his office.
Yeah, exactly. And like, you got to think on the flip side, like, yeah, those are great, and people like getting injuries. I was in a real bad car accident myself, and amounted, I was 2 days in the ICU, broke my back in 2 places and everything, and $60-some thousand in medical bills later, like, someone's got to pay for those, mm-hmm. someone else's insurance. And so I've been on the other side of that, attorney accident aspect. But what people don't realize is the risk that money comes from someone if it doesn't come from your insurance. And so it's always one of those, it'll never happen to me type situations. And
until it does.
I mean, I've been in situations, I've seen people served with $400,000 demand letters over basic accidents. And now that doesn't always happen, or this is going to be a scare tactic to you guys to go get
packing up and moving to Canada or Mexico.
But if you like own anything that you've built or over your life, a business, your house, your family, anything like that, you want to protect it. And don't jump out of a plane without a parachute. At least, hopefully not, right? You'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Exactly. That's like a lot of people want to get into real estate and stuff, and they make no plays to protect themselves from liability. Like, not even the most simplest thing. Like, if you get a rental property, put it in an LLC,
right,
and keep that rental property away from you, because if someone falls on the rental property and it's owned by you, like, now your house is up on there, your cars are on there, your bank accounts are on there, and it's like, so many people don't even make that basic play, let alone have proper protection and insurance.
Right. And the bad thing is we live in this like sue happy environment anymore. Like, you don't really have to be in the wrong anymore for someone to want to sue you, right?
True.
It just sucks. And I mean, yeah, you can go through court and you have to, prove negligence and all that, but at the same time, it usually ends up costing you something, right? And it's unfortunate, but it's just one of those things where you want to take the extra step and just protect yourself, because it literally only takes one time and you could like lose everything you've worked for.
Yeah.
It takes one selfish person, one bad accident. I mean, accidents happen, guys. It's like, I mean, I've been at fault accidents. I've been in accidents. I'm sure someone's had some kind of experience. Your dog gets out or someone comes into your yard and, your dog bites someone because it's their property. Yeah. Like you think that, well, they're trespassing. Well, that's true, but they still take you to, small claims court and sue you over it. Like you could still get hit with something.
I think when you're first starting out and like you're in your 20s, you're broke, you're poor, you don't have any money, like in your sense, like being underinsured and you're 22 with zero value to your name, like whatever, if you have a massive bill, you just file bankruptcy. But it's like,
don't care.
The thing is, like, as you level up in life, you start, instead of just being on pure offense, you have to play defense with your finance too. And
absolutely.
It's like you have to recognize, like, okay, before I spend my extra money on more of a car payment, more of a house payment, like, let me protect what I have now. Let me pay an extra $20 in car insurance a month. Right. Let me pay an extra whatever in medical. Number one reason people file bankruptcy in America is medical bills. So it's like, let me make sure I have health insurance. And I think a lot of people go from like that broke stage and then they get to like the middle class, upper middle class, and they kind of skip over that and they go buy all the cool shit. Right. And then the quick way to lose all your cool shit is to crash your cool shit being underinsured.
Yeah, I've done both. So I agree. And the idea is, and I'm glad you brought that up, like, being in your 20s and 30s is, there's a statistic that millennials basically, they think, like life insurance, for instance, you're talking about that. The average millennial thinks life insurance costs 230% more than it actually does on average, because it's an education thing. Like, how many times in your lives we brought up really about insurance? Like, you're told you got to have it, but there's no real financial education in our school systems. That's really based around that. In the sense, like going back to the credit stuff. Like, were any of you guys taught credit before you graduated college and signed that student loan, and got that, $30,000-$40,000 in debt? I know I didn't,
David didn't go to college, as we mentioned in previous
episodes.
Good for David. But I did.
Be like David.
Yeah, for real. I had student loan debts. Fortunately for me, it wasn't as much as the average, and they're all paid off. But I learned my lesson. I was like 19. Wells Fargo, of all places, gave old B-Rat over here a $900 credit card, and I went and charged wheels and tires onto it immediately. Never paid it back. Ever. Like wrecked my credit at 19 years old with a credit card that I never paid.
Yeah.
Ugly ass wheels.
Some ugly ones, because you were 19.
Oh, no, they were.
No, you were 19. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Under, what was it, like
under
Ultima?
No,
kidding. Yeah. No, and I thankfully was pretty blessed. I have, my grandparents, my grandma specifically, taught me from day one, like, protect your credit with your life. Like, your credit is everything. So I had some bad examples in my life of what bad credit was and financial security. And then I had some good ones, and I thankfully chose. I mean, I made some bad financial decisions.
We all did.
I have had some credit card debt, but my grandma told me, you protect that credit like it's your livelihood. And I think that's come down now too. Like you said, protecting now my assets. So now I'm in the same boat of, okay, I protected my credit, I've done well. So now how do I protect what I've earned and what I've built?
Your assets and all that good stuff.
And all your assets in that sense. So, I mean, guys, there's tons of professionals out there. You can get tons of free information. Just make sure you're like protected, or that your stuff's even adequate, like you were saying. Yeah. Most people just don't even know until it's brought up.
Yeah.
I mean, if we as professionals have to go through licensing and state exams and all this stuff to even talk about this, I mean, what gives I think the people the idea that they can safely go online and just do it themselves, right? And
True.
That's the same thing. I mean, yeah, you can go and get TurboTax or whatever, and do it yourself, and I'm sure you could probably do it right. But if you got some intricate, stuff going on, you probably want to talk to a tax professional.
Like
right?
when it's basic, there's utilities out there to handle the basic stuff. But
and I agree.
As things get complicated, that's when you want to bring in professionals. Honestly,
yeah.
If you just have a W-2. My tax returns usually start between 180 and 200, and TurboTax does it for free. Like, how can I compete? Unless you have something else going on, there's really not much to do. So,
especially with the
new
as
complexity comes.
Yeah, the new tax plans where you're not really writing stuff off anymore. you're just putting in numbers that are in boxes.
Deduction,
It's so crazy, But like you said, once you want to, keep more of that money that you've worked hard for, to keep that in your pocket, I feel like you should talk to a tax professional regardless, whether you're, a W-2 employee or not, because you could be leaving something on the table that you don't know about.
Yeah, there's definitely it doesn't hurt to at least talk, and then, if your situation doesn't change year to year, you might be okay. But
and the thing is, most of those professionals will usually do it for you for free, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm sure if someone's like, hey, can I just come talk to you, get a consult? And I know with our industry, it's the same thing. I'm gladly review anyone's stuff and just offer them a review and be like, yeah, your stuff's good. You got a great price, because at the end of the day, you're protected or, covered, I guess, technically can't say protected. Don't hold it against me, guys. But, in that sense. And so it does not ever hurt to reach out and just ask for a professional, advice, a professional opinion. Literally. I mean, they tell you when you go and get a diagnosis or something, they say, go get a second opinion, Your doctor tells you to do something. I mean, you might question them a little bit, but most of the time,
you do it.
They're the doctor, they do that. You're, don't go on WebMD, right? How many times do you hear that? Don't self-diagnose, guys. Do not self-diagnose.
Dang.
That headache is not cancer.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sure that keeps you pretty busy, your new career and building your brand and all that good stuff. What are some of the side projects that you've allowed yourself to take on? Yeah,
so I have this problem also where I can't do just one thing in my spare time. And so I've taken on a few other projects. A couple of friends and I have a small apparel company going on. It's called Thick Boys Co. It's kind of pays homage to the blue collar, average, thick boy, 2 C's. And so
love that.
We do, just bearded men's apparel. We have some thick chicks and stuff too, brand that goes with it. So I still do some apparel and e-commerce and that side too.
Needless to say, you're not in those photos.
Yeah. We got a side brand coming out. It's called Thick Fit, and that's what I'm working on. That's where I come in a little bit. So we got Thick Fit, thick chicks, and thick boys and stuff, and branching off. And then also now working on another project. All these are with other partners and friends, so I don't have to take it all on. So that's another thing. It's utilizing and leveraging, like I said, the people and the skills around you. We're doing a crypto NFT Web3, however you want to define it, project with some friends and I. It's called the Crypto Cousins, and we're actually creating and developing a full NFT project. So full NFTs and everything for mint and sale and everything with full utility, community, everything like that. So I've been into crypto and stuff for a few years now, getting into that. I know Brad and I kind of go back and forth on that all the time, but
how much did you lose in the last 3 weeks?
Brad, I've lost $0 because I haven't sold. So
okay.
It always bounces back.
It bounces
how
back.
How down is value?
It's called cycles, Brad. What happened to the stock market?
Rough cycles in crypto. I mean, I have cryptocurrency too. I just don't,
I diversify.
I'm just not balls deep in it like some people, but
a little.
Yeah, no, I definitely I have some of it, but yeah, it's been tanking.
The best tactic I have is invest early in some bullshit. Forget about it for 5 years and then go and figure out how to log back into Binance.
He's got one crypto. What is it?
ADA Cardano, baby.
You been in early?
I was in at less than 5 cents.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Have you been rebuying since it dipped?
I didn't pay attention. Yeah,
he's like, I don't even know. I'm way up.
$600 invested. When everything shot through the roof, it was at $35,000. And now it hovers around 20,000-ish just in Cardano.
I love it.
And I was like, that really opened my eyes because I forgot about it, and I just checked it one day, and I was like, oh shit, I could pay off my car, I can do this.
That's the exact same concept with retirement investing, like your traditional 401k. It's like,
just forget about it.
There's time and money. That's all it takes. Put money in and wait.
There's a saying, and it goes with traditional stock markets, but now into crypto too. It says time in the market is always better than timing the market.
Oh, yep.
Right, because like Brad said, it's going to go up, it's going to go down, but at the end of the day, your time, you got compounding interest. If you're earning interest, on those up years and stuff. If you're adding into positions over time, stuff like that, time is your biggest asset really that we have. Honestly, it's the one thing you can't buy back, and so that's what everybody is always trying to do, is buy their time back. So how do you do that? As business owners, I'm sure we throw all of our time in. We're doing the opposite. We're sacrificing all of our time for a little bit of money, maybe at first. And eventually everyone's goal is to get to that point where now you're leveraging all of your assets and all these other things to give you time back, right?
Absolutely.
So it's a little bit of a trade-off. I mean, it works same thing in stock market, same thing. I mean, life insurance, the same thing. The younger you are with life insurance, you're only going to get better ratings and everything like that. Whether you're earning interest-bearing, retirement strategies with insurance too, time is in your favor, everything like that. So,
except auto insurance, the younger you are, the worse that is.
Yeah, auto insurance is that's a whole different ball game. Yeah,
I got to pay higher rates because some dude decides to not drive around with insurance. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like the uninsured motorist.
It's actually a common misconception because going back being into cars and stuff like that, and I love like exotics and things like that, vision board, you set it on there, and I'm in some groups and a lot of people think that exotics are actually really expensive to insure. So if you're insuring like a $300,000 like Lamborghini Huracan, right, you think it'd be outrageous to insure. They're actually super cheap to insure. Like you can literally get full coverage on like a Huracan, R8, everything like that for like $200 a month.
That's $10 less than what I pay.
Exactly. And people are like, well, that doesn't make any sense. And it's like, well, how many Huracans are getting wrecked every day? It's like, well, how many 350Zs get wrecked every day? They're in the top 10, by the way, to insure.
But, good thing I just got rid of it. Thank God I got rid of it.
But again, it's education based, right? Like everyone has these conceptions about money, markets, insurance, all this stuff. And it's just that stuff just doesn't really get talked about that much, And
I'm sure it's ever changing and evolving,
Right.
Mm-hmm. That's huge.
It does. And it's just, and I think that's why going back to, having those relationships and conversations is I'm even finding in the industry that a lot of people don't have their like conversations with their tax professional. Like even if you have an agent or something, I had, someone and they're like, yeah, I haven't talked to my agent in 20 years. And I was like, wait, what? Like, I don't know, but it's just, there's like, just kind of a set it and leave it type of thing. Well, it's not really investing because times change, markets change,
strategies
change, everything. Maybe you remodel your house, and no one knows that your house now doesn't have basic, linoleum countertops, and you got granite and, gas hoods and all this stuff, and you've put in 50 grand into your house that's technically not even insured because you've never told your insurance professional about it.
Finish your basement, didn't
tell anybody, and it's like, well, I don't want my rates to go up. Well, I mean, your taxes go up and you pay it every year. Yeah. It's the same thing. Like you can't know nobody's saying that, but if God forbid something happens, you want to make sure your assets are covered.
That was a big one recently was, people were finding out they didn't have the wind coverage,
Oh yeah. Wind and hail in Colorado is a huge thing. It's probably the number one factor in premiums just because it's highest risk for claims, right? And so I've seen a lot of people's deductibles even are like percentage based now instead of flat deductibles. They're like, oh yeah, well my deductible is like 1%. I'm like, 1% of what? Like, of my total value. I'm like, okay, so your deductible alone is like $4,000 on your house, your roof, and now you have an $8,000 roof. You're paying 50% out of pocket. Yeah, you're like, because you've never talked to your guy and asked, hey, what is this?
You haven't changed your rates since 2000.
Right, exactly.
It's just like your phone plan. You get stuck on an old school, like line plan versus like an unlimited plan. You're paying a lot more and receiving a lot less.
Right,
because you didn't want to lose your unlimited at that time.
Yeah, actually had my Comcast guy say the same thing. He's like, dude, call in every year and just because plans change.
Yeah.
And like you'll be stuck in a worse plan for a longer time paying more money because you've never changed.
Exactly.
Yeah, my family member, they had a fire in the garage and it messed up the garage, messed up the kitchen and everything. And it's been like just a nightmare because they were underinsured on their house so far. I mean, they owned it for a while. And it's in a big city, so the appreciation on the house is expensive. The cost to rebuild is way more expensive because of the increased pricing, and it's been a real headache for her.
Supply shortages have been insane, and that's a huge thing. I mean, everybody knows. I mean, you could talk to any construction worker and owns a construction company. Is what is like the labor yard rate right now? I mean, back in March or something like that, it was up to like $1,400 when it's normally like $200. So. Damn. I mean, you got to think about that. Now, if you got to reframe a whole house because it burned down, like just happened in Superior, like now your rebuild cost to frame your house is 4 times as much. And you might have some clauses built into your policy, hopefully, for extensions. You might not, but you might not know. And so as markets and times change, labor goes up. I mean, that's a big thing right now, working wages for everything. Trades especially, cost of trades are going up. All of that same stuff goes up. And it's all a trickle down. Like everybody gets affected in it somehow,
Yeah, absolutely.
whether you want to or not. And it's literally, I mean, the homes in Superior that like, you know, were literally, you know, whole neighborhoods burned down. We're in like one of the lowest fire risk zones like in the state of Colorado. There's no immediate forest nearby to them. It just was kind of a crazy thing, and now everyone's faced with that, unfortunately.
Just a perfect storm to destroy everything. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. High winds and everything started in a community, high winds, and just took it. And then, I mean, we saw what happened. Unfortunately, you know, people lost everything. They had no time to get anything out of their homes, and sad, unfortunate situation, you know. But that's what we're dealing with now.
It's kind of interesting because I was thinking like, when you think insurance, you're kind of like, oh, it sounds kind of boring. It's not that, but like when you think of insurance and lasting legacy, like the podcast, it's actually very intertwined.
It really is. I was thinking about that because I know that's kind of the question we come back to, and you know we can get to there. But we'll
get there.
He didn't write it. He didn't write it down. I was just like, how do I end
better
this?
get there? You better.
But it really is, and that's the other thing is like, so when you're talking about legacy, you know, protection of like your home, your auto, your assets while you're living, you got to think about, you know, your family and everything as well beyond that, because a lot of times people think, you know, if I die, it's no longer my problem, right? And that's
somebody's problem.
It's somebody's problem, and it might not be a problem, you know. But who knows? But I mean, even if you're leaving assets, you're leaving money behind. Maybe you're leaving a fat bag of cash somewhere, like
In the
Mr. Uncle Sam is gonna want a little bit of chunk of that, you know. They're gonna let you die and not pay a little bit of tax to go through the gatekeeper, you know.
It depends. That number is super high right now.
Yeah, but you still have to pay some estate tax, don't you, or inheritance tax and stuff?
It's at like $12 million. So if it's
over
that, if it's over that, then it's
11 million. I'm good.
Then it really,
yeah.
Now, and you know that I believe that is only set for like through 2025 or something. I don't know. I'd have to check. But right now that amount's super high. But you don't know in the future. It's something that's gonna probably be ever changing. But
it does allow like life insurance for the majority of times. The death benefits are non-taxable. So like, let's go extreme. And if you have like $1 million policy and like you have kids or something, if you're able to pass them on $1 million for like to pay off the home, maybe set up college funds, and you know maybe you're into charities, that's $1 million that's not getting taxed at that 30% or whatever, 22%. You know, that Uncle Sam would normally take $200,000 a chunk out of or something, you know?
Yeah. And from like a taxation standpoint, like it depends on what you're passing down, what the tax rates are. So I don't want to say like 100% is 100% tax free. That's not how it is. But yeah, you're right. There are some that are more beneficial than
there's a lot,
others.
and that's the thing is like everybody's position is unique, and that's kind of like I said, we were talking about the insurance and the homes and the autos and stuff like that, and that's all very kind of basic. Like, here's your car, here's your house, here's what you got in it, here's your rate. When you're getting into like financial planning, life insurance, like David's rates and Brad's rates are not going to be the same because their situations don't look the same, right? You know, you want, you know, to have stuff for the wife and kids and the home and stuff. David's might look entirely different. He might want some long-term, you know, tax-deferred growth options with that benefits as well. Whereas maybe you're just looking directly out for the family for right now. And that's the other conversation that most people aren't having either, of what benefits like you in your specific situation. And so that's what it kind of excites me about my job, my opportunity, is to find out people's needs and what fits them and for their goals and their future.
Find those open doors that appear closed.
Yeah, that how can I help you guys achieve those goals as well? You know, I'm not like the investment guy. I'm not going to, you know, go invest in mutual funds. You know, if you need that, I know a good guy. But but there's a lot of other avenues that people have never known about with like life insurance and, you know, asset protection and tax deferred growth options and stuff like that that isn't talked about as much as some of the other stuff. So it's pretty interesting. It can get pretty in depth pretty quick.
I'm sure it gets crazy. Absolutely. So we're big on goals, on lasting legacy. So what are some of your short, medium, and long-term goals for you personally in the business, whatever?
Yeah. So short-term goals right now, I'm just, you know, personally working on, you know, my health and like physical fitness and everything is kind of important to me. I mean, our health is literally all you have. If I were to give you, you know, $10 million right now, you'd probably love it. But if I had to tell you had to be, you know, restricted as a quadriplegic to a bed, you'd get every single dollar of that back, right? So the money doesn't matter at all if you don't have your health. So that's big to me right now. So trying to really focus on that. And then also professional goals is building this business into like an ethical, prospering business for me, because I'm in a position to really help people and make sure they're covered and their assets are taken care of and stuff. Or if the unfortunate happens and a family member were to pass or something, that the family's, taken care of, and they don't have to deal with that additional burden of a financial burden or worrying about stuff like that. So to me, that brings a lot of excitement and a lot of joy and stuff. So that's kind of that's kind of all in one, I guess, long term and short term. I mean, building the business right now, short term, medium, eventually I'd want to grow the business a little bit more and hire, additional people, be able to provide some jobs. It's always been a big deal to me to eventually get into like some teaching opportunities, maybe whether that be, courses, speaking, something like that, be able to educate and give back a little bit more. I know we kind of touch base on the financial literacy aspect. I feel like there's a huge area of opportunity for our youth in there that I'd like to be able to get into some of that financial literacy for maybe like graduating high schoolers and stuff like that, credit, stuff like that, and knowing some of the stuff I know to be able to help them come out in the world and not get that credit card at 27% interest, or how to actually leverage credit and they can buy in their first house young and stuff and not be scared of it, and stuff like that. So those are big goals for me. With the Crypto Cousins, one of our big aspects is we're taking percentage of all proceeds and donating it directly back into charities that help underprivileged youth. So whether that be, families of drugs, alcohol, inner cities, kids don't have access to different things, to be able to provide them hopefully an opportunity to learn those things that they never would have, and just be able to kind of get a jump start and a foot in the door on those opportunities. So
that's super awesome, man.
Big for me. Yeah,
you're definitely on the right track for sure. So I mean, you kind of touched on it, but if you could wrap it all up, what do you want your lasting legacy to be?
I think my lasting legacy is I just want to be able to teach and give back and learn. I want big, lavish, fancy things. But someone, the phrase always comes up that money can't buy happiness. But I heard the best rebuttal to that, and it says, well, if money can't buy happiness, you haven't given enough away, right? And so money has the opportunity to change lives, and not necessarily just yours, but the lives of others. And so growing up very moderate, lower middle class and everything like that, just being able to impact hopefully the lives of others, and even if maybe it's my family, maybe not, is big for me. And so just being remembered for teaching, educating, whether that be directly monetarily or just through like knowledge and education, is kind of big for me. So working towards that. I gotta build the foundation. Awesome. Like I said, we go back, utilizing my business now to help people in their current situations, but utilize that as a foundation to continue to build some of those bigger goals. So
yeah, absolutely, man. That's super huge. You don't hear a lot of people talking about like giving it back. It's all about making it and keeping it, securing your assets, obtaining assets. So that's really awesome that you did mention that. Giving back is a big part of it. So that's super huge.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can either spend it, save it, or give it away. So
yeah, I mean, you can't take it with you. Like literally, I mean, live the life you want and everything. I mean, if you're motivated by money, if you're motivated by things, I mean, go get those things. I'll never knock anybody like that. You want the car or whatever, if that's what motivates you, go get it. Everybody's a little different. Some people it's not. So.
Yeah, if you're unhappy in your Honda Civic, I promise you're going to be unhappy in your Mercedes. Like if you're not happy in the town that you're in, and you're not doing anything to change that within yourself, moving to a bigger city is not going to bring you that happiness. Right. So I think that's super huge.
But if you know that all you want in the world is that Mercedes, go get that Mercedes.
Absolutely.
You're gonna want a bigger, better Mercedes in 6 months, but
you'll probably you'll probably learn enough on the journey to get there. Hopefully, it's called it's like the Hedonic Treadmill or something. So it's basically like if you just keep pushing the goalpost back and chasing something, like you'll get the same feeling whether you're buying a new Mercedes or you're buying a new McLaren.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like you do have to find that inner peace, whether that's giving back to people or keeping your health good, something like you have to find that inner peace in you and be comfortable with where you're at, and then you will enjoy those lavish things once you get there even more.
And I'm sure it evolves for everybody. Like my goals when I was 20 and what I wanted when I was 20 are definitely not the same now, in my 30s. So I mean, if you talk to anybody in their 50s, it always evolves and changes. But like Brad said, having that same mindset, if you're shooting for, 10x or 100x and you come up a little short, you're still doing pretty dang good. So
what they say, shoot for the moon, and either way, even if you miss, you're, within the stars,
absolutely, yeah.
That's
Bring it
super
back
awesome.
to that third grade poster.
Yeah,
Dang.
throw it on the wall.
Stared at it. Well, thank you again, man. It was great having you on. You put us onto a bunch of insight. All of his links will be in the description box below. Hit him up, if you have any insurance questions. And thank you again for listening to the Lasting Legacy podcast. You can find us every Thursday anywhere you get your podcasts, plus YouTube. Good night.